Yes. Welcome back to another City Extra stream. And the Super League, bro. It's the Super League again.
This is just this week, man. This week.
What is it with City getting cancelled and Super Leagues, bro? It's like during Marvel films and they get back all the old like Spider-Man, like the multiverse and that, and they get back all the old Spider-Man who played that. It's like that, bro. Everything's just coming back. We're re-upping.
Yeah. It's a crazy situation. We'll go through all the latest details, what the new Super League might look like if it gets through, and why exactly this is coming about. But yeah, it's a big stream again. Make sure you drop a like on it. We're 8 likes away from 100. Get those likes up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well if you are new, guys. We are now currently 155 subscribers away from 70,000, man. Ooh. So yeah, make sure you are subscribed to the channel to get to help us get to 70k. Big up to the guys at Boohoo Man as well for sponsoring today's stream, which I'm buzzing about because it's freezing in my flat today. So I'll put the big hoodie on, man. So if you guys want to go get yourself something, make sure you use our link and use code CityExtra at checkout. You'll get an extra discount off your order. And obviously an international company, so available for everyone. Big up Joel, who says, if we're out, Super League in, we'll probably win it.
I mean, it might be the only league that we would be in. You know what I mean? So,
is you on about the Premier League? So if we're out the Premier League,
yeah, if we're out the Prem, Super League in.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, fuck it, let's do it. And Amar with a 2 says, up the Super League, F the Premier League. And I said this would happen. I said that City fans, would start turning on the Premier League and that they'd be more open. Not everyone, of course, but some fans would be more open to the Super League after this latest sort of attack on the football club by the Premier League. But let's get into it then. So of course we all know about the Super League, but let's sort of like go back a little bit and look at exactly what's going on. So effectively, the problem is this: the Premier League right now is so dominant and is such a spectacle that it is effectively the Premier League. Now, why this is an issue is because the Premier League gets the most money. It gets the most viewers. Therefore, it gets more sponsors, more money. The more money goes to the clubs and all that kind of stuff. Now, that's not a problem for the Premier League. The reason that the Premier League is so successful is because of the way it's set up, in that every single team gets basically a load of money. And therefore, the league is super competitive. And that's why people like watching the league. On top of that, it's a historic league with loads and loads of gigantic clubs that you simply don't get in other countries. Now, why is this a problem? Well, it's a problem because other clubs simply don't get the revenue and the money that they get. So they need to find a way of being able to compete with the Premier League teams in both European competition and in terms of getting more numbers on them, getting more eyes on them. And therefore, the only way that they've sort of looked at doing this is by starting the European Super League. So they started it last time, but there was a load of issues. First of all, the way it was announced was a shambles. It was terrible. It just came out of the blue and it was just shockingly bad. The PR on it was absolutely shocking as well. All the sort of like, oh, this will be good for fans and all that kind of stuff. It was really, really bad. And a couple of other things, but the main one was the fact that it was a closed group.
Yeah, mainly. You couldn't break in, you couldn't get into it. It was the
There was a couple of positions. There was a couple of positions where you could, but the majority of it was just the same.
Locked off. But the same clubs were guaranteed to be in there, and there were certain teams that I'd have to fight to basically be in there. It's the OG Super League had a very, very, very negative vibe. It was bad for football, really. We spoke about that a lot of the time.
Yeah,
now
for sure.
For me, I'm very sit back on this. I'm ready to listen as well and learn because I have no idea about this. I was out actually, and Lewis texted me. He was like, "Yo, we need to change plan. Super League's back." And I was like, "What the fuck is he on about?" So I didn't even know this was coming back until I literally got in 5 minutes ago. Then I checked Twitter and I was like, "Yo, what?" So we are on the rise again.
What we're going to do, as I said with the Premier League allegations, what we're going to do with this Super League, we're going to go through the latest article and the latest news on this, and we're going to go into it with an open mind. And at the end of it, we can all decide, and we'll do a poll. And in fact, we'll do a poll now as well to see if people change their opinion. And we'll see what people think come the end of it to see whether they're open to it. Not cast iron, but just see whether they're open to the idea. And I'll give you my opinion as well. Great Bassinet with a 2 says, love the shirt, Jordy. Happy Thursday, lads. Yes, bro. Big up to yourself. Paratosh as well with a 2 says, so we join Super League if we get kicked out. I guess it's an option, bro.
It's an option. It's there. we need to have some form of football.
Yeah. Strudel's lol with a 5 says the hilarity that the Premier League think they can take down one of the world's most powerful men is laughable. It's fairy tales. So confidence there from Strudel.
That is some confidence. That I like that.
Yeah. And Tinsay with a 2 says Sheikh came and utterly conquered the Premier League. Is the Super League next up? Well, we'll see. Let's get a poll in there first of all to see what people think, and then we'll go through the details, and then we can see if people change their mind. 1 second.
Great bassinet, mate. Shirts from Boohoo Man, and this stream is sponsored by Boohoo Man. They sponsor us. I seen someone in the chat, Conrobo, asking LB, what is the hoodie? Is it Boohoo Man with a Boohoo plan?
It's a Boohoo Man with a Boohoo plan. That's it, bro.
It.
So go check it out, man. Paul's in the chat, guys, so go cast your votes now, and then I will do another poll later on to see if people have changed their mind once we've had a full discussion about it. But yeah, that's effectively where we're at, and that's why the Super League was wanting to be brought in. I don't really think that the Premier League clubs necessarily really wanted the Super League that much. You know, you look at some of the clubs. I think the American owners might have wanted it because I think for them, obviously, it would probably raise the value of the club, and I think that's what they're all on about. But I don't think that they necessarily need it because they're already getting a lot of money as it is, and you've got to ask yourself how much more money would you get from the Super League? And obviously, for the Premier League clubs, any increase would be a percentage wise would be a lot less than say a Serie A club. So a Serie A club, they could potentially double, maybe even triple their revenues if they're in the Super League. So for them, it's kind of a no-brainer. But as you go up the sort of the spectrum of better leagues, and so you go into the Bundesliga, again, revenue might be a little bit higher, but maybe not that much higher. La Liga, maybe for the bigger clubs, yeah, the same. But for the Premier League, it's probably not that much different. So they're probably at the bottom, but obviously sometimes owners and all that kind of stuff, they kind of like to see maximum profits and that. The poll, by the way, we've had 250 votes. 55%, in fact, it just ticked up to 56% of people in the chat say they are open to the idea of a Super League. 44% are not open to the idea of the Super League. So I'll leave it open for a few more minutes, and then we'll end it, and we'll do a thing.
We'll re-up it for the next part where we learn about the new Super League. See what has changed. I'm genuinely interested to see, obviously, because the first one was that bad PR disaster as well. Takes big balls to run it again. The same idea. Now I'm interested to see how they've changed it. Do you know what I mean? What's different about it? How they've learned from the first model of the Super League. But is it still Perez behind it?
Well, let me go into it. Let me take you through what's being proposed. Okay, so yeah, Zeno, good point actually, bro. Good point. And Simon says only if we can stay in the domestic leagues. Well, let's go through all this because that's a very, very interesting point, Simon. So, effectively, what they've realised is the PR was absolutely shocking last time. So what they've done, they've set up a new company called A22, and A22, that's their sort of job, is to sort of lead this and push it from a PR point of view. And essentially what they're saying is this. They're saying the foundations of European football are in danger of collapsing, Rijkaard told German newspaper Die Welt. It's time for a change. It is the clubs that bear entrepreneurial risk in football. But when important decisions are at stake, they're too often forced to sit idly on the sidelines as the sporting and financial foundations crumble around them. Okay, so why are they doing this? So they're doing it because the European clubs are at risk of dying, essentially, because the Premier League's too strong. Look at your own fucking leagues, lads. Look at La Liga, right? La Liga do not have the same TV right set up as the Premier League. So majority of all the stuff goes to Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Atletico Madrid. That means the league is not as competitive as the Premier League, and therefore
the cash ain't spread even, isn't it? So
it's not spread even. So therefore, you're not going to get more eyes on it because basically no one really wants to watch it.
The top at the top, innit? And that's it. No one really wants to watch.
Correct.
Like, do you know what I mean? In the Premier League, it's hard to take any game for granted because you can lose against anyone.
Exactly, and that's because the standards are so high. So that's the La Liga. If you look at something like the Bundesliga is praised by everybody, and I completely disagree. It's praised by its fan ownership. Yeah, the fans own part of the clubs, and people can't come in and take a big stake. Great. All that means is that it's very, very difficult for a really rich person to come and buy a team and invest a load of money to get them up the league and therefore make the league competitive. So what do you get? You get Bayern Munich winning the league every single year. So again, I mean, it's praised by people. And when I see people say, oh, we need to copy the German model, I think, are you having an absolute laugh? Do you not understand what that would do to this to the league? It would destroy it. So sort that out. You know what I mean? I kind of get it. You like to the idea of having fans own football.
Fan ownership is nice. It sounds nice.
For the league, it's dead. It's dead for the league because people very rarely. When was the last time someone come in and spent pure cash in a German club? It's very. I mean, Red Bull did it with Leipzig, didn't it? But it's very difficult because you can't own the full club. So that's another thing. And then you go through all the leagues, and they're all very similar. This is what the report says. So it said the original plans for the Super League in 2021 contained 20 teams. That would be 12 founding members and 3 unnamed clubs that they expected to join later on, plus 5 clubs who would qualified annually based on their domestic achievement. So 5 would be qualified throughout domestic achievements, and then the rest of the 15, 3 of them were unnamed. They would just be in there every year, no matter what, no matter how bad they were. They could come bottom of the league every single year, but they would still be there. Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, United, and Tottenham all were in the Super League. However, all backed out within 48 hours. Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Juventus, however, are still pushing for the Super League. Why? Because they're in leagues that are struggling. Now, here's what comes the massive change. Rijkaard, the guy who leads the A22 company, says the new Super League would contain 60 to 80 teams, with each team being guaranteed a minimum of 14 matches per season, whilst they would continue to play in their own domestic league. So you wouldn't, based on what they want, you wouldn't have to leave your domestic league to play in this competition. They didn't provide much more on the format. By the way, I'm getting this from the BBC, so big up the BBC. So first of all, what's your initial reaction to that, bro? It's been expanded from 20 teams all the way up to potentially a maximum of around 80 teams.
And how do them teams get into it?
Well, we'll come on to that again. I believe that a lot of this would be sort of more qualification based rather than just necessarily you're in it guaranteed. But
is this looking like a Champions League replacement, basically?
Well, yeah. You won't be able to play the Champions League.
Yeah. They're bidding off the Champions League, and it'll be the Super League instead. You still stay in your respective leagues. Whereas last time it was like a break. Well, it was a break-off thing, wasn't it? At a certain point, you break off the Premier League for a certain amount of time and then do something. I can't remember the last one. I can't remember the last one at all. I don't know. I guess it's better that there's 8 teams. If there's like a relegation system, that is definitely better. If you're in the Super League through merit, like the Champions League, you get there finishing in the top, obviously top 4 positions. I think that's better.
One of the reasons why this is potentially worrying. I'm going to end the poll, by the way, so we can re-up another one in a moment. 55% of people say they are open to the idea of a Super League. The reason why this is potentially worrying, if you don't want this to happen, is if they're going to expand this to 80 teams, that means that there's going to be a lot more teams in favour of the competition, and therefore it's going to be harder to stop. One of the major problems with the last one is that it was 15 teams. It was 15 teams.
Yeah.
So that you don't have the buy-in from a lot of clubs. If you can get 80 teams from around Europe to say, you know what, we're going to sack the European competitions off, we're going to sack the Europa League, the Conference League, the Champions League off, and we're going to go in this new competition, 80, that is going to be really difficult to stop. So I think that from their point of view, I think they've absolutely smashed it there, because I think it's going to be why. And people go, well, why? Why is it going to be more difficult to stop? Why? Because you get pittance for playing in that Conference League. You get nothing. You get very little for playing in the Europa League. So all this new ownership of league thing has to do is say to all the teams that are usually in the Conference League or the Europa League, say, this is how much you earn per year playing in the Europa League or Conference League. If you come in to join this new Super League, this is how much you'll get. And it could be 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times the money. And that's going to be really difficult, because
for clubs, it'd be hard to reject.
Of course it is. If they are as bad, if they are struggling financially as they say they are, it's going to be really, really, really difficult. So I think actually, I'm not saying that I'm happy with this, but I think that this is actually quite a big masterstroke from the new Super League, because you're just going to get a lot more buy-in. You really are.
Yeah, and obviously it's more difficult, like you say, it's more difficult to sway the decision to cancel it, like because with it being 15 teams, 3 unnamed, and obviously the 12 teams that just binned it instantly had 48 hours. The thing was in the bin, like it was it was done. Whereas if there's 80 teams, you have a larger pool of teams that'll have mixed ideas about staying in, staying not. So the percentages will be a lot different. It'd be interesting to see actually if there is an uproar, how many teams would say no, because like you say, the financial gain from some of the teams that could do with that money, it'll be hard for them to turn down this new version of the Super League. 80 teams seems like a lot. How many teams are in the Champions League at the start?
Well, if you go for, you talk about the groups, because obviously you have a lot in
you have a lot in qualifying.
There's a lot there, but if you've got 4 per team and there's about 8 groups, 8 times 4.
Yeah, so about 36.
32.
Is it 32?
Yeah, 32, isn't it? So something like that. Big up Dago, who says, I would just join Super League just to piss off the FA and EPL. And Nick Toll says, why did Goldbridge say it will save us? I'm confused. I didn't watch it, though, so I don't really know.
I didn't watch it, but maybe it's saying because it's this guy's maths. Hey mate, yeah, I was in bad sets in school. That school system failed me. I'm Lewis. You heard the way we speak. Yeah, I think maybe he's saying it'll save us because if we get kicked out of the Premier League, at least we'll still have something to go to. Also, Tinsay said before, I can't remember who read this out, but the 2 says, the Sheikh came and utterly conquered the Premier League. Super League next up. Potentially exactly. another badge to put on it. But it's still, there's something about it, bro. It still stinks.
Well, let's continue. So basically, in December, UEFA and FIFA received significant backing in their bid to block the creation of a European Super League. In the report released by the European Court of Justice, its Advocate General said the rules of football's European and world governing bodies were compatible with EU competition. It had been claimed UEFA and FIFA were breaking competition law by threatening to sanction clubs and players who joined a breakaway league. A final ruling on this matter will be made by a 15-member grand chamber in the spring. Now, Tabas has been speaking. He obviously absolutely loves it. This is what he's saying. Despite the ruling, A22 has been engaged in comprehensive dialogue with stakeholders across Europe on the future of club football. It has also developed 10 principles, including broad-based meritocratic competitions and development and finance for women's football, which will be the foundation for the new Super League. He said this, our talks have also made it clear that clubs often find it impossible to speak out publicly against a system that uses a threat of sanctions to thwart opposition. He says, our dialogue was open, honest, constructive, and resulted in clear ideas about what changes were needed and how they could be implemented. There's a lot to do, and we will continue with our dialogue. Now that was the directive A22. La Liga president Javier Tebas has been a critic of the Super League and denounced the new proposals. He says the Super League is the wolf who today disguises himself as a granny to try and fool European football. So clearly he's not happy, but he's obviously the because what this will do, this will take money away from domestic football. This will take money, because if you're a sponsor, right? If you're a sponsor, you want to pay for maximum exposure, right? So if you've got a set amount of money, right, and you can say, okay, I can either sponsor La Liga or I can sponsor the Super League, then you're probably going to go to the Super League. Now, the Premier League would still likely be very, very strong because it's a brilliant, brilliant product. But I think some of the other leagues could actually get worse. This is the thing. This is why it's really, really sort of...
Because the teams that don't get into the Super League positions, it'll make it even worse for them, because obviously the TV money will go down because the sponsors will shift over to the Super League. And now, if that was something that would happen to the Premier League, so that the Premier League did get some form of, deduction in the sense of a lot of the sponsors, TV rights and stuff like that, they're all moving to Super League, so there's less money in the Premier League now. That's obvious. That will obviously still have an effect on some of our clubs as well, the ones that don't get into them positions. So I don't know, man. It still stinks.
Yeah, no, for sure. The final sort of points on this is that the Super League is still being pushed. They've opened it up away from the ring fence 15 teams, and they're looking to address some of the concerns that were raised by clubs and fans. And obviously, I think by raising it to 80 teams, I think all they have to do is go to the teams that are in the Europa League, that are in the Champions League but weren't in the Super League and in the Conference League, and just say, this is how much you sort of average every year. We've looked at what you roughly get every year. If you come in the Super League, this is the amount you're going to get. And I just think that, I think this time when it does actually get pushed, I think that it has a quite a high level. I think it has a quite a high chance of getting through this time if they do it in the right way, and if they do it. And I'm not saying I want it. I'm just saying I think they do, because if you can get 80 teams around Europe saying, yeah, you know what, we're going to go for this, I just don't think you can stop that. I don't think as many protests as you want, people go out in the streets, whatever. I just do not see that you'd be able to stop that if 80 teams all agree.
Yeah, if 80 teams agree, it's going to be very, very hard to stop. I've seen a few people in the chat, right? Yes, Craig, hope you're doing well, mate. Are you too late? No, we're still talking about it, mate. So you're not too late. The thing I've seen in the chat is that the Premier League won't be involved. Apparently, someone on Sky has said the Premier League's not involved in it.
Well, yeah, they probably wouldn't be involved. This is separate.
Oh no! Sorry. I mean, like Premier League teams.
Well. This is obviously another thing. First of all, it goes against Premier League rules to even talk about
disbanding,
speaking a new league. So basically, any Premier League team that's been talking to any other club about potentially the Super League is technically in breach of Premier League rules. So add that one onto the list, because City probably have had that conversation. However, if all these clubs in the Premier League decide, if Arsenal, if all the big clubs in the Premier League decide that they want to go into this Super League, they go into the Super League and they'll stay in the Premier League. People, what do you think the Premier League's going to say? Right, you all go. We don't want you in the Premier League anymore. You think the Premier League's going to do that? The Premier League wouldn't be able to do that. They'd have to let them stay in the Premier League. They would be in both, and they would drop out the UEFA competitions. Now, how all that would work? Because you'd assume that UEFA would still have some sort of competition.
Yeah, so what would happen with the Champions League?
So exactly, so qualification, all that kind of stuff. I don't know how it would all work, but there's absolutely no way that if City and all the other clubs in this league wanted to go for this and they wanted to join this 80-team Super League, that the Premier League would just be like, well, we're kicking you out of the league then. You're deluded if you think that. What, you think the Premier League's going to kick out all its best teams and all of the teams that people want to watch? No chance. They would go with it. Because, yes, okay, the Premier League doesn't really want this to happen because they feel that it could impact their brand and it might take eyes away from the Premier League and it might take a little bit of money away from the Premier League. But I tell you what would take more eyes away if them 6-7 clubs weren't in.
Yeah, because they can't watch them. It would make no sense to kick them out.
They would dissuade them from doing it, and they would probably try and stop them from doing it. But ultimately, if the clubs found a legal way of getting themselves into this Super League, they'd be in the Super League and they'd be in the Premier League.
So Craig Party Time there has summed it quite nice, obviously. So basically the main difference between old Super League and new Super League is old Super League was a domestic league killer final. This one is more of a Champions League killer.
Yes, however, I think whilst the Premier League would be quite well protected, it would still be quite interesting to see,
like La Liga, the other leagues like Italy,
and that's why obviously I think you've got a really strong reaction from Tebas in La Liga, because
he knows.
I think the Premier League is strong, but I think the other leagues could suffer a little bit more.
Yeah,
I think that's fair.
Yeah, that's it. It's going to be. I'm really interested to see the way that these teams look at it, and obviously what the qualification is like for this. So I'm going to guess there's no guaranteed teams in this one then.
I've not seen anything to suggest there's guaranteed teams in it, and that was one of the things that people really did not like about it last time.
It was protecting the elite again.
Yeah, but obviously it's still early days, so they could agree to that. They could get rid of it. I'm not sure, but yeah, From what I've seen today on Sky Sports and on the articles and stuff, I've not seen anything to suggest that there is going to be guaranteed teams in it. But it really wouldn't surprise me if they did that, or once they've got the buy-in, then change the rules. I don't know, they could do something like that. But I think that if they want to get this through, because let's be honest. Okay, so what are the fans' main issues with this? Okay, so the fans' main issues with it, because let's be honest, was fans sat there going, "Oh, we love the Champions League. We love UEFA." No fan was sat there doing that. Why did fans not like it? Fans didn't like it because it was uncompetitive, because you couldn't be relegated and promoted, right? Okay, so that was a major issue with it. The fact that it was the same teams in there, 15 teams in there who were just picked randomly, and it seemingly was picked on money rather than success, because Spurs were in there, and that's not a dig at Spurs. Even Spurs fans said that at the time. Why are we in it? Arsenal fans the same. So yeah, that was sort of the main issue. I think if you look at this now and they go, look, this isn't going to impact domestic league football. Everyone's still going to play in the leagues. All this is doing is we're going, do you want to play in UEFA's competition, or do you want to play in our competition? And all they need to do is propose something which is better than the current UEFA system. And if they do that, unless fans just say we don't like the Super League because they just don't like the name of it, or they don't like change. Yeah. At the end of the day, I don't have any affinity with UEFA. You know what I mean? If someone else comes along and goes, oh yeah, this is a new possible system, as long as it's better than UEFA's system, well, what's really the issue? People, the only other thing that you could say is heritage. Oh yeah, but we like the European Cup. We've had the European Cup for many years. Obviously, changed formats slightly, but we've changed formats in the past. We went from Cup Winners' Cup, European Cup. We've now got Champions League, UEFA Cup. Then it got changed to the Europa League. Then we've got Conference League. Now the Champions League's been changed again. More teams are coming into the Champions League. So it's not like we've not had changes in European competition. It's just a fundamental decision of who do you want to run the competition. Do you want UEFA to run the competition, or do you want
A22.
These clubs?
Yeah,
A22, who's effectively all the clubs. So I'm open to it, but I think that they have to really put through they've really got to make this massively beneficial for the clubs. And you know what they could do. This is what they could do, but I don't know if they would do it. Something that would really help trying to push this through is to get the fans on board. Say the ticket prices would be capped every season, and write that into the rules and say, if the clubs agree to join our Super League, ticket prices will be capped at £30 and no club will ever be able to charge more than £30. And that is, say, capped every year, and it can't go up. The next time ticket prices can be reviewed is in 5 or 10 years. And even if they decide to put them up, they can only put them up maximum by cost of inflation or something like that. So then straight away fans go, oh, okay, because one of the big problems with European competitions is that the ticket prices can be quite expensive.
Our strategy is shit on it as well. Cities, Jesus.
Yeah. So this is I think what you've got to look at, and I just think that they've realised their mistakes from last time. What they tried to do last time was more of a like, fuck UEFA. Let's get the big boys in a room and let's get us all earning the big cash, and let's get us all playing each other, and we'll get all the money and fuck these other people. And they really didn't think the strategy through. They got such a big backlash, and now they sat there going, okay, we can make this work, but we have to make it work for a lot more people, and that's why they've opened it to 80. I genuinely think that there's a big chance this will go through.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the 80 team thing gives them a better chance. Naveen's been removed, by the way, and K-Pat's kid. I did remove him before you sent that. The initial, I think a lot of things have to be outlined for me to be on board. But like I say, open mind is probably the better way to look at it. I think a lot more things have to be outlined.
So again, there's people there in the chat who's. Oh, sorry, I just muted myself. People in the chat saying, I'm concerned that they'll start moving the games around.
That's what I was just about to mention to you then.
No fans like that. No fans wants the game to be played away from home. So again, what they could do is say, we'll write it into the rules. Yeah. All games will be played in the respective clubs' stadiums other than the final, which will be played in a European country. Boom. Okay, right into the rules. That alleviates that problem. Ticket prices, that alleviates that problem. I mean, if they do stuff like that, they've got to try and get the fans on board with it. You know what I mean? And that's there are ways that you can do that. And I think that they've realised that mistake from last time. And I think that if they're smart, that's what they'll do. Because if they want to get it through, that's what they're going to have to do.
Unless they do have plans further down the line to, I mean, basically don't say it, shift the goalpost further down the line. Oh yeah, we never said we weren't going to do this. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then that'd be leading more towards Tabas. They're saying like, or I say a wolf in a grandma's clothing. But I thought the saying was wolf in sheep's clothing. But he phrased it different. He phrased it like Little Red Riding Hood, didn't he? But yeah, that's the danger of it. That's why I think everything would have to be completely outlined.
Mm-hmm.
Like at this moment in time, I don't know where it's because like I've just got this like bias against it like from last time, but it does kind of still stink.
Why does it stink?
There's just something.
I'm playing devil's advocate here. Why does it stink?
Because it just feels like, obviously we don't know the situation if these top teams are going to be guaranteed. They've not said yes, they've not said no. And then for teams that are like in different leagues where the revenue of the money's going to go down, what happens to them? What?
When you talk about leagues, you talk about domestic leagues.
Yeah. So what happens to these teams when they lose this money? That a lot of teams like rely on the money that they get from the TV rights. So what happens to them? Do we just have to let them die, or we just have to let them run into the ground because we want to go and play some nice football in a Super League? That's
one of the problems you're going to have. You know, in other leagues, and we said this before, other leagues may. I mean, they may not, but. They might get some less revenue into them clubs, you know what I mean? Because maybe sponsors would rather put their money into the Super League. So yeah, you are right. That's clearly an issue that the Super League is going to have to address. And I say address. Why they're going to have to address it? Why? Because they'll be questioned on it.
Yeah, they're going to face loads of questions about this. They'll face absolute loads. And now something that is worth pointing out isn't there new Champions League format as well, which stinks.
So
I can't remember the new Champions League format.
So the new Champions League format has changed ever so slightly from 2024, I believe it is. I've not got the full rules on it, but they've expanded the teams. They've added a few more teams in there as well, and they did say they were going to invite 2 teams per year who didn't qualify. However, I don't know if they changed that now.
Oh yeah, it was the thing on the merit thing, wasn't it? Yeah, that 2 teams will get in because of the. What I can't really call it. There's a word for it. I can't really call it, but they'll get in on that. That was weird. That was weird.
Coefficient points.
Coefficient. That's the one. The coefficient. Yeah,
I don't know if that's been removed.
So
I don't know if that's been removed.
So they binned that obviously because that had negative backlash straight away, didn't it?
Yeah.
Because everyone was like, "How can you just let them join in when they don't deserve to be in the competition?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. Let me go through some of these super chats we've got coming in because a lot of people want their comment, they want their say on this. Neil says, if you read about history and even the current times, powerful people dictate the rules. Khaldoon and Sheikh are the most powerful people in the world. Premier League will be dead. No one can touch City. Confident there.
Big confidence from Neil.
Ashad, yes, with the 5, says Super League is nothing but Barcelona, Real and Juve to make money to compete with the Prem. No Prem team can join the Super League due to the new Prem charter signed by all Prem teams. Listen, Ashad, I agree with the first point. If City and the rest of the teams in the Premier League wanted to join that Super League, they would join the Super League. They will find a way of joining the Super League. There'll be nothing that no one could do to stop them, regardless of what they've signed or whatever. If they want to be in that Super League, they'll be in the Super League, is my opinion on it. GL75, yes, Sam, with a 5, says, Play chicken?
Play chicken.
Oh, play chicken. With the other Premier League clubs, make them jump for it. We stay in the Champions League. Then it's City Girona in the final.
Yes.
Jokes aside, got to keep an eye on it. Yeah, for sure. Ropey Dopey with a 21. Says, OG M Doper comes soon. Saw a video today from 90 Minutes Daily talking about Man City. It's amazing how biased and poor some of these YouTubers are. It is unfortunately a shame, but, clicks and likes on it.
That's the way it is.
Tom Owen with a 5 says FFP rules for this new league will keep the big clubs at the top. No casts allowed, so any disputes, get your kangaroo court set up by Barca, Juve, and Madrid. Again, this is something that would have to be established, because you're gonna have to look at everything like that, Tom. You've kind of like, you've gone deep there, lad. You know what I mean? But you'd have to go deep. You'd have to look at that. So while we've sort of looked at like the fans and all that kind of shit, you spot on. You then have to look at, okay, well, what happens if there is a dispute? Where do you go for the disputes and all that kind of stuff? And Spectrum is Green, thank you for the £1 donation. I appreciate that, bro. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So I'm going to read up the poll. Are you open to the idea of the Super League? And I'm going to see if anyone sort of changed their mind, pro or maybe go against it. Listen, for me, I'm looking at this and going, I'm open to the idea potentially of it, but I've got to see the details, and the details will define my decision.
Yeah,
at this moment in time, there's not enough information out there.
From the information given, I'd lean towards no. But you know what I mean, that doesn't mean my mind can't be changed. I need more information about it. But that's just the way things are right now.
Yeah,
I think there's just a lot. There's a lot that needs to be answered. It's like a semi-half-arsed announcement, really, isn't it? Because they've not really outlined too much.
Yeah, they've obviously. This is preparation. This is to get it back in people's minds, so then when they do drop
it's not a shock.
This is what it's going to be.
Whereas last time it was a shock, when it was like, what the fuck, what's this? And it was thrown in your face, all these details, clearly been planned for ages, and then everyone knew that the clubs have been speaking about it because they've all already agreed. So then that's why it went down like a sack of bricks last time. So I'd be interested to see when they do come out with more details about it. And maybe that's what the strategy from them is to like release this bit of information now to see the opinion of the general public and where they want this to go, and then they can, before they release their version of their rules, because they might think, oh yeah, these are right, but then it might not work again, and then they don't want to bin it, so they might just be looking at it now without saying too much because they've not committed to anything yet. Sack of spuds, it is sack of spuds, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think if they want to get this European Super League in and they want to get it active, I think getting 80 teams in, first of all, would massively help, because then, you know, you got 80 teams opposed to 12 or 15.
Yeah.
I think looking at stuff like ticket prices, looking at stuff like guaranteeing that games will not be played outside of Europe because it is a European Super League is despite obviously the temptation to go to the Middle East where the cash is, or the States, you know, it's a European Super League. Keep the games in Europe, keep the games being played in the home teams. That starts to alleviate fears from some fans that feel that, you know, they won't be able to watch their team. Also looking at stuff like making sure that teams are not guaranteed a spot. You know, if they do perform poorly, that they're relegated or demoted to the league below and promoted, and teams have the option of moving up and down the leagues. And then the only real thing that they're going to have to deal with, the backlash, is what you raised, is, okay, if they bring in the Super League, how will it impact some of the other leagues around Europe? Could some teams die because, you know, revenue will dry up in those other leagues? Well, they're going to have to deal with that. They're going to have an answer for that. And also they're going to have an answer to what, you know, basically. So you're basically just killing the Champions League. And there's a lot of people that like the Champions League.
Heritage,
so they're going to have to deal with, heritage. Yeah, exactly. So they're going to have to deal with that. So they're the two main obstacles that they've got, really. But I think if they play the cards right, I think they could really get close to getting this in. I think they could. But they've got to get the fans on board. They've got to get the fans on board, and they've got to get the clubs on board. So what they're getting the clubs on board because they're getting 80. So that'll get 80 clubs on board. And then they have to get the fans on board. Well, you're going to have to get fans of them 80 clubs to get on board. Okay, so protect ticket prices and make sure games are going to be played in the stadium. That's a great way of starting. And then, you know, some of the opinions might start to change. I don't think it'll be too loud. One thing that will be huge, by the way, is the media backlash to this.
Oh,
because one thing that will 100% happen here, guys, is if the European Super League does get in, forget Sky Sports, forget BT Sports. They won't have a foot at the table. It will be the Amazons of this world. It'll be the Netflix of this world.
The streaming services will jump all over it.
Correct. So then what you're going to get is you're going to get this propaganda push from the media to say this is really, really, really bad and all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting. But it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, man. I'm looking forward to see how it plays out. Look, I kind of like just, the standard shit, the Champions League, Europa League, Conference League. And I think UEFA, I don't really think that they've helped matters really, because clearly there is a desire for this European situation to change. And I think, could UEFA sit down and sort of try and help, sort this out? I think
fix the Champions League a little bit.
Yeah, just refresh it ever so slightly, but I don't know. It's difficult. It's difficult because when you deal with these superpower clubs, it is difficult.
Yeah, it is a mad one. I've seen something then that I wanted to actually read. Oh yeah, Asmodeus there. He made a good statement. He said it's not the fear of change, it's the fear of the unknown at this point, because that's what it is. The Super League is still with this coming out now. It's still majoritively. Is that a word? I don't know, man. My brain ain't working today. It's still an unknown. We still don't know what lies behind the doors of this announcement, and that's the
one thing it
scary
also
part.
says, bro, is this. They've also said that this new Super League, you'd only be able to spend a set percentage of your revenue. So whilst they've kind of got rid of we're not protecting anyone, it is going to be protected because no one will be able to compete.
Yeah.
No one will be able to compete with the top clubs, because if you're getting £600 million a year in revenue and you can spend a percentage of that, but another club that says we have ambitions to go to the top, but they can only spend a set percentage of £100 million revenue, it's not happening. It's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So whilst they've kind of got rid of we're not going to let big clubs just stay in the league, they have, because they put FFP in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, they've capped it, so the big teams will stay at the top. The people who earn the more money naturally will stay at the top.
Correct.
It's funny. It's funny I was talking about that, isn't it? I'm earning money naturally when everything going on at City. We get cooked and stuff like that. I got a question for you, bro. If it meant, say, we do get expulsion from the Premier League, if you had an option, you had to pick one of the two. I know it doesn't really make sense because the domestic league still stands. In fact, this probably leads on to something else. But League Two or Super League?
Well,
this is what I was going to lead on to then. If City got expulsion from the Premier League, would you reckon we'd still be invited? because surely you could only get into the Super League by being in the Premier League and getting into them positions. Surely it'd just take the Champions League positions. This is the thing, we don't know what qualification is, or is it certain teams have an invite only still?
So what I think it would be is, I think what they do is they'd effectively say, right, in the first year, because it's going to be divisions, it's going to be maybe like 3 divisions or 4 divisions of the Super League, right? So I think what they probably do, and this is just my opinion, I don't know, I've not seen anything because there's still quite a lot of lack of information on this. I think they would say, okay, the first year, all the big clubs are going into League One. And all these clubs below that, League Two, League Three, basically just taking the Champions League, Europa League, and Conference League, and just saying you're in there, you're in there, and there, and then it's like promotion relegation, but it's promotion relegation within that league, not your domestic league.
Yeah.
So you could finish bottom of the Premier League, but you could finish top of the Super League, and therefore you'd remain in the Super League and you remain in Division 1 of the Super League. So if City get themselves in the Super League
and then get expulsion from the Premier League,
you could just say, you know what, we're not going to play domestic football anymore. We're just going to play Super League, and that would be fine so long as you stayed in the Super League. That's how I think it would work. But again, I don't know because there's not a lot of information out there.
It's just wild, isn't it? Imagine a team just going, yeah, I'm not playing domestic football anymore. See in a bit. I mean, we might not have a choice. We might be, we can't play domestic football anymore, so we have to wait to Super League. I mean, it's gonna be 4 years before we get resolution of any of this anyway. But it's fucked.
It's crazy. But people have to remember this Super League isn't going away. It's being backed by like big ass companies. JP JP Morgan in the States were backing this. Yeah, they were backing the Super League, man. They were there with the funds and right, yeah, we're going to full send it. You know what I mean? Like, it's here to stay. They're going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And if this one fails, then they'll be back in another couple of years with another model, and they will keep on tweaking the model until it finally gets through and people accept it.
If this new Super, obviously, because it's a league, isn't it? It's a Super League. It's not a knockout competition. It's points based, isn't it?
Well, no. So I think what it would do is it's a league that then goes into
like a finals, basically.
Yeah.
So then,
that's because you gotta have finals, man. You gotta have finals. That's where the big bucks comes in, isn't it? When you get to the finals and stuff. So I think that it'd be a league, and then at the end of the league, you'd have playoffs and stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's heavy. That Super Bowl. Yeah, it is pretty heavy. Because Chris Verlon says a Champions League every 2 years and a Super League every 2 years. Bosh. Says it like basically just how alternate between the two.
But the reason that they won't want to do that is because UEFA will not want to give up that, because then it'll be like, and then Super League comes back to you and says, actually, we want you to do one Champions League and then we're going to do three Super Leagues. And then, once you let them in, you can't do that. UEFA won't be able to do that. UEFA can't give ground. They've got to remain strong and be like, no, this is bad. You're not going in. Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it's crazy. It's a crazy situation, and we'll get more developments on this. But
it's strange. It's strange.
It's just a mad week, isn't it? Everything just seems to be going off this week.
I know. Yeah, they can't. It's never a quiet week. Never. Well, I say that. Now it's not. Now it never will be. Because now you'll get more news of this coming out, because loads of questions will be asked now, and we'll have to see. We'll have to see how they twist and turn this one into potentially something that becomes viable. Like, and obviously there is the whole thing of the Premier League making all the clubs sign that document, and if, like you say, the clubs probably do have the power, and the Premier League won't kick them out because they'd lose the money anyway.
But the people say, just kick the teams out of the Premier League. I mean, come on, man, give your head a wobble, guys. It's not going to happen, man. It's not going to happen. You think the Premier League are going to kick out Chelsea, United, Liverpool, City, Arsenal, Tottenham?
No, it's just not. It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
It'd be mad if it did.
And realistically, like I say, the only thing the Premier League would be against this is because it would potentially, not guaranteed, but it would potentially take eyes off the Premier League and money away from the Premier League. But kicking all them teams out would take a lot more money and a lot more eyes away. It just would. It simply just would. So,
and they join the Premier League, then they kick them out. Then they join the Super League anyway.
Exactly. So the Premier League are gonna kick back on this. They're not gonna be happy with this. But ultimately, if the teams want to do it, the teams will find a way of doing it. They will. They've got the best lawyers. They've got the best people working on it. They'll get their way through it.
Joel Webb with the 4.9 says City play friendlies and Super League ? No relegation, no financial fair play, so players can be paid cash to play for us. Realistically, Super League will replace the EPL eventually.
Yeah, that's another concern that they'd have to answer. Well, what's stopping you from going from 80 teams to 100 teams, or in a couple of years,
expanding the competition,
and eventually domestic football just becomes dead, and there is no domestic leagues,
it's
and
just
everyone's
one
just
giant league,
massive, and everyone like Barrow, or teams like in League Two are now playing against teams in League Two in Italy or whatever. And people will be like, well, what stops you from just growing and expanding? That's another question that they'll probably have to answer.
That would be a world league, wouldn't it? It would be a Super League. It'd be a mega league, like a mega pint.
Exactly.
Dope with it too says, who have you got in the Super Bowl this weekend? I'm not even sure who's favourite this weekend.
I have no idea, bro.
I can't
lie. I'm only going for one, the Bears, and two, Rihanna.
Yeah, he could give you 5 reasons, and I guarantee the actual match would not be one of them 5. Yeah, we're going out this weekend watching it. So for people asking for a watch song, there won't be a watch song, but we're going out this weekend. So honestly, I don't know either. I don't really watch American football or anything like I do like it. I do. That doesn't mean I don't like it. I do like it. But the only thing I watch is the Super Bowl every year.
Mm-hmm. See, Boyd out there in the chat says English football league structure would be destroyed by this. I don't think. Well, how would it be destroyed in the sense that? Because let's say, for example, the teams go into the Super League and they stay in the Premier League, right? So nothing actually changes. The only thing that they'd have to establish is, okay, say Leicester, who are not in a European competition now, I think they got knocked out of the Conference League. Say Leicester won the Premier League next season. Do they go into the domestic? Do they go into the Super League? How do you get yourself into?
How do you
the Super
get in?
League?
If it's not,
how do you get yourself into the Super League? So if I win the Prem and I've gone from mid-table to winning the Prem, right? Unlikely, but it happens once in a blue moon. How do I get myself in? Is there a way to get myself in?
But then will competitiveness potentially die down in the Premier League because of all the Super League games, and then teams start prioritizing Super League games over Premier League games?
Well, I mean. No, I don't see. They said you're going to have a minimum of 14 games. I mean, how many games do you play in the Champions League now? You play 6 in the group stage. Mm-hmm. You play 2, that's 8. Another 2, that's 10. Another 2, I think in the semis, that's what, 12, 14. So if you get to the final, you're playing. Oh no, it's not 13. Obviously, it's not a two-legged tie. So you're playing. If you get to the final, I think I've done the maths there roughly.
Actually it says 13. Yeah.
Yeah, so you play 13 games. So they're saying you're going to play around 14 games. So I would guess they're league games. Then you go into the knockout games. Say add another 6 on, so you're going to play 20. So you're only going to increase it by about 5 or 6, 7 or something like that. You know what I mean? I don't see teams saying, we're now going to not be able to play strong teams in the Prem. Like, I don't think that would be a realistic thing.
Boyd says. Also, it says it'll be merit based, but it doesn't expand on what merit actually means. Like, yeah, so it doesn't expand on whether merit means that you have to finish in a certain position in your league, or your coefficient. Well, I guess the coefficient doesn't exist, or basically you're invited on a merit basis. So they look at the teams that they think will be.
I think So to get it going. They would have to do it.
Yeah, they have to just
base.
Invite people straight away because
there's no other way of doing it. There's no other way
people
of doing it. So
you just have to be in.
Yeah, you're going to have to invite teams to get themselves in. So they're 80 teams. They'd have to probably be invited. So what would they do? They'd look at all the teams that are in the Champions League and say, okay, you're in. All the teams that are in Europa League, you're in. And then if they've got any teams left, from the Conference League, say you're in, just get the biggest clubs, and then after that first season, then you could start doing it. But yeah, there are still a number of questions that you have to ask about this. I think
there's so much.
The big ones for me: how are fans protected? Again, if I win the league and I'm not in the Europa League, I'm not in the European Super League, how do I get into the Super League?
Yeah,
do I automatically get in? Like, what, you know what I mean? Because say City, Arsenal, Tottenham, and all them are in the top league or the top 2 leagues. Because let's be honest, none of the Premier League teams are likely to go into the 3rd league. Because whilst it's probably reasonable to say that Spurs should go in the 3rd league, if we're saying there's going to be 3 European Super Leagues, they're not going to do that because of the money. They're all going the top 3. So the big 6 clubs in England are all in the Super League. Okay, well Newcastle are going to qualify for the Champions League in the next couple of years. How do they get in? Are they then going to have 7? Okay, what about if Leicester come back and they have a good year? Are you going to have 8? You know what I mean? Because let's be honest, like the big 6 teams in England are highly unlikely to drop out of League 1 Super League into League 2 Super League into League 3 and then still get relegated out of the competition. Yeah. That's unlikely. So is there a limit? Is there a limit on how many teams from one country can be in?
Yeah, because if all the top 6 are in there anyway, but then like an off season where Leicester go and win the Premier League, you win the Premier League. Because the current format that we have now works for that because they get into the Champions League. It just end up
being the Premier League, bro.
So so all the Premier League teams will end up well. But then it's such a weird one. It's such a weird one. It's a head fuck. It's a head fuck of a situation that they've got on their hands.
Yeah, there's still so many questions needed to be answered. But yeah, there you go. There's the broad outline anyway, guys. As more news drops on this, we'll obviously bring it to you. And more news will be dropping on this. I'm pretty sure now we're going to be in a situation where every couple weeks, we're going to be getting like drops of news, and it'll be what you said, bro. They're going to drop the news and see how people react, and then if people react positively, they'll do it, and if they don't, then
tweak it.
They might tweak it.
Go back, change it a little bit. Like basically, they do it all without committing too hard to their format. That's how they've done it now. Because we know it's coming back, but no one can tell you what it is. What we have just a broad idea of it. There's a Super League. Yeah, we don't know any of the rules yet. Because I reckon that's what they'll do. They'll listen to what everyone's saying and just see how it plays out. Man. Alex says, "Boy, you're about to hit the 70k party stream." Yeah, we're very close. Very, very close. Yeah. If you've not already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're nearly at 70k. We did a 50k party. We said we'd do a 60k, but we was pretty ill, so we dipped on that one. 70k, we'll run a party, innit? Run a 70k party.
Yeah, man. Buzzing. All right, and guys, go buy products on Boohoo, man. Use our link in the description or pinned comment, and make sure you use code CityExtra at checkout. And if there's any applicable discounts that can be applied, they'll whack it on for you. International shipping on all the items as well. Loads of discounts, loads of sales on there, loads of different items and price ranges to suit everyone's budget. So go check it out. Boohoo, man. Massive shout out for the sponsor today. Make sure you drop a like on the stream, subscribe to the channel as well if you're new, and we're back later on. See you in a bit.
See you in a bit.
Thank you.